And by then, we were just done.
Yeah, we didn't do too many rides. Just go on mazes. The same one after a while. You're moving through them so fast, you don't even pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's even worse.
Yeah. Well, that's why there's that's right, there's Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I came back again a week from Saturday.
That would be why you owe her a question.
That would explain it, yes. Why are they bugging me? It's like, getting a week behind.
Just give him one. Just give him one. Don't worry
We're
about
not voting next Tuesday.
No. Okay, Will just said it was the 14th.
it. It's
And I'm like, no, it's the 6th.
I voted by mail, so.
30 tricks.
Voter suppression at its finest.
Voter suppression comes to the Coachella event. News at 6.
Some straight moves.
I'm gonna ask, and KMIR is gonna investigate. That's what they say they do.
Yeah.
It is what they
You
say.
asked, they investigate.
Yeah.
I believe you.
And they'll do their expose.
Either. Yep. All right. I got a couple of things here. Let's see. Any Dodger fans? Any Red Sox?
Oh,
fans?
I thought you said doctor fans. I'm like, I don't really like doctors.
They're not my favorite right now. Although one of them is my one.
Who's the one?
All the rest of them. I like my surgeon a lot. He's really cool. Cool guy. I mean, if you ever have to have surgery, he's the man. Sir, it's Dr. Ibrahim is his name. He's the bomb.
Which is weird, because surgeons usually have a really bad bedside manner, and
He's really good.
because they don't talk to. You're all asleep when they see you.
Is he out here, local?
Yeah, he's in La Quinta. So, and he has privileges at JFK and Eisenhower, so you can take your choice.
Cool.
He does all the little surgeries at JFK, and he does the big ones at Eisenhower. I don't know. He's done me 3 times already.
I'm sorry.
Oh, hey.
Well, no one wants to have free surgeries. I'm not, that sucks.
Well, not his fault.
The only surgery that I've had out here was in one of those surgery centers. And when we pulled up to it, I'm like, what is this? Because it looks like a strip mall. Like they're going to take my liver out here and sell it on the black market or something. And we go inside and it looks just like a doctor's office. I'm like, oh, it's really weird.
Yeah, Hooker Ibrahim is right across from the post office in La Quinta.
Oh.
So easy to find. So he's next to like a storage center. It's like, oh, okay. But then you see this little row, it's like, whoa. I found the hidden gems of the desert.
No, yeah.
Maybe. So, let me try that one more time before we start. Any Dodger fans?
When I was a kid, I was a Dodgers fan. I have not followed it in forever. So Clayton Kershaw, right?
Yeah.
He's like
He's still around?
he's their big star still, right?
I think so, yes. I don't really follow baseball anymore.
I think he's like going down in history as like one of the greatest pitchers like ever.
That's what they say.
Yeah, he's got like the greatest whatever that percentage is over like a certain amount of years that like, yeah, he's gonna be one of the greatest pitchers ever.
Mm-hmm.
Half my family's Yankees. The other half is Red Sox.
Okay. And your Thanksgivings must be fabulous.
They always were.
That's just a start.
That's just the start.
We started with baseball. And then we veered into things of much less importance, like religion.
And then half the family is Jets and the other half is Patriots.
That's gotta hurt.
They just hate each other all around.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Wow. Jets fans, that's painful. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, root for teams that, you know. When's the last time we won anything?
Especially my other friends who were Bills fans.
Oh.
And they don't win anything.
Nope.
Even less than the Jets.
Yeah. There's a independent film you probably never saw. It wasn't really that well received, but it's very funny. It's called Buffalo 66. Anyone even heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
It's about this guy who's obsessed with the Buffalo Bills and how they lost in 1966. And he keeps, because they missed a field goal at the last minute, it bounced off the bar. I mean, it's as close as you can get without going through. And so he's obsessed with this. And he keeps watching it on tape over and over and over again. And the only reason anyone knows about the film today is because it was the first film that Mark Ruffalo was in.
Oh, really?
So that's where he got his start.
Oh.
Like his big sort of, I mean, he may have had a bit part and stuff else, but this is when people realized who he was.
Oh.
Because he was pretty good. And actually, and it's good. Here he is today, though.
I know the whole.
There you go. You see, there's justice in this universe. Anyways, it's a cool movie, though. Especially if you're from New York, I'll bet it's even better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure there's lots of little bizarre things about it that I don't know, because I'm not, in the New York culture. So.
Probably at least on that side of the state. New York's so big that everybody has their own section.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's great. I mean, everyone just thinks New York is
New York City.
it's hardly true. Yeah.
I know. I tell everybody I'm going home next month. They're like, oh, you going to the city? I'm like, I am actually, but I live about 5 hours north of the city. They're like, you can be that far away? I'm like, you can be that far away from LA. California's not just LA.
So, yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great questions that when you're in history or geography or things. If you ask people what the capital of New York is, they'll always say New York City, 90% of the time.
I thought that up until 9/11. So 6th grade. And they're like, well, that's why they didn't make New York City the capital, because they didn't want people to attack it. So they built up New York City, and Albany's just kind of crap.
There's gotta be a better reason than that. Why is Albany?
Saying it's not worthy of being the capital. Why is?
Why is Albany the capital?
We moved there in 1797.
New York City may not have even been part of New York yet at that point.
Well, they burned the thing down in 1812 too, so there you go.
True.
So there's a problem there. They inhabited, they burned Washington down, and they inhabited New York City. And then there's some wreckage there as well. So
Wasn't New York City also supposed to be the the capital of the country at one point, and then they wanted it to be in the South after the Civil War, and that's why it's in D.C.?
oh no, it was already in DC by the time the Civil War came.
Oh, it was? I thought that was I learned that was like one of the concessions of the Civil War, is that they would put the country capital in a southern
There's a really, really good reason. Okay, so New York was the capital of the United States at the time.
Yeah. Oh, at the time?
Yeah.
I knew it was at
There's
some
a
point.
really good reason.
I just wasn't sure at the time.
Under the Articles of Confederation, at the time, New York City was the capital of the nation.
No.
That's why, and Albany was actually a major trading port. It was the avenue.
for the Hudson River and
It was
everything
the avenue
else.
between British Columbia and New York, and the way through both, with bird trap, with like beaver
Yeah, with the
trapping,
Hudson
all
River.
went through Albany. So it was like kind of like the waypoint into the wilderness. But because New York City was the capital of the nation, that's the
That's
reason.
why.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Who knew? All right, away we go. Okay, so, right, midterm. So, midterm will be two PTs. Yeah, two PTs, not 290-minute PTs. But
I feel cheated.
why?
Because they didn't have 2 last year for midterm.
Well, we had one long one, so
Oh, they had a 3-hour one?
it ended up being 3
Yeah,
hours.
this is T2.
Oh, I thought, because I didn't think they had an afternoon session last year. I thought they just had the 1 90-minute and then the 1 Wills and Trusts and they were done.
So we gave a longer question last year, I think.
What's the schedule like? Is it going to be 2 PTs in the morning and 2 O's just in the
I
afternoon?
think so. Yeah, I think you're doing 2 in the morning and
So we actually get a longer midterm than everyone else.
2 hours in the afternoon. Yeah, it's okay.
It's an hour longer than everybody else.
We get 5 hours of testing.
5 hours of testing.
Really
Instead of
fast.
4 usually, yeah.
yeah, well, you got the extra hour for this class as well, because it's 90. So that's 3 actually it's 3 hours. It's the same as you do.
But then we have 2 Wills and Trust
And you have
questions.
2 Wills and Trust questions. Right.
Can you run? You can't rush like in the multis.
There are no multis.
I know exactly.
So-
Yeah, that's okay. It's just good. I mean, to me, just so you know.
I mean, this is what the bar is going to be, so.
Yeah, to me, it's just a little. I just like the idea of you doing a couple under time conditions. Other than that, I don't think it's going to be anything. You're not going to, if you stay calm, right?
Mhm.
But this is what I want to know. Are you going to stay calm? That's what you want to know too, because there's no doubt in my mind you'll be able to do PTs. That's not the issue. Right? So that's what the midterm and the final are part of this class. And remember that they're worth slightly less in this class too, in your other classes, because your portfolio is worth half your grade in here. But, so that's 50% there. And I think they were.
That's in British Columbia. You're in Vancouver, right? Sorry, I'm in like three years ago.
No, they're both on the west side of this
So our midterms
country.
are going into our
Then
performance.
what is
Montreal.
Montreal?
Our midterms are going into our performance. The midterm is going into the performance.
No,
No, it's still its own separate grade. It's just worth
that you
less.
can't, that you can't give anybody. You know what I'm saying? So your portfolio really is trying to get some documents to show people out there. So let's see, participation is 10, midterm is 15, final exam is 25. Your portfolio is 50% of your grade in this class. But it's a performance class, so there you go. So these is, but it's good. I mean, I'm glad, you're doing it though, just because it's just time. It's just, it's really frustrating, because really, I know, how to explain? I know scholastically speaking, or whatever else word you want to use, they're just not that difficult. They're just not. The only reason they're difficult, if you even want to use that word, is because it's time. And it's a weird kind of unnatural time, that usually you won't have to deal with and things of that nature. It's very fast, especially with the new ones. It's just that time, trust me, you will sit down 90 minutes later, you won't believe it was 90 minutes. That will be one good way that you'll know you passed. If you're like, that was 90 minutes? Well, I think I got everything. Stop there. Don't analyze it any further. That's as good as it should get at that point. That's my personal opinion. So if you can do that, you're going to be in good shape. You do some nice headings, that would be helpful, I'm sure. And if you remember to use all the statutes in the cases as much as possible, and manage to hit the applicable facts, so to speak. Again, by the end of the class, you'll see you'll have like a structure. You will see it emerge in your papers. As well. You'll want certain things to be a certain way in a certain place because you want to get them all out in front as fast as you can. See, that's one of the big tricks, is you just have to get as much as you out as you can quickly, because you want to make sure the reader sees what you're doing. If they see that you have sort of a style in a way, and they see that you're throwing out, if you can work it out that by the end of the first page, there's your first statute, there's your first case reading on the first page if you can. Well, why would they assume your other pages aren't going to be as good? The answer is they won't. Again, the best way, and this really does work. I mean, it's just the way that I look at it. If you think about it, for a few minutes, the reason it works is because if you can do this, it can't hurt you. So, taking, even with an essay, right? If your first page looks good, then you've got the reader kind of flipping pages, right? I mean, first page looks good, all right. Next thing you're probably going to want to know, did they finish, right? So you flip to the end, okay? If you have a good first page and you finished, what's the feeling that you leave with the reader? Assuming that I'm somewhat correct in saying that readers, how about human beings? They're impressed by good looking first pages, right? And then they look to the end. So what do you think? You selling them already? By them? The answer is yeah, you're selling them by them already. That reader is probably thinking, at least this is someone I can give a 65 or a 70 to, right? I don't think they're going to think off the top of their head that it's passed. Might, but I don't think so. I mean, at least I don't do that. I always think, okay, well, but this is someone who I'm thinking I can give a pretty good grade to. Because think of the alternative. See, this is why you can't kind of lose by paying a little more attention to these factors. What if your first page doesn't look good? Okay, what realistically? You're going to change it by page 2.
Yeah.
That's ludicrous. Your second page is most likely going to look like your first. So if your first page is not good, why would I think that all of a sudden, your second page you somehow mastered an essay or whatever you're doing? It doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even really matter what you're writing, frankly. Although I will say that there are some people, I don't recommend it on an exam though, who they do take a little while to kind of start to flow a little bit. But that's also partly why I want you to pay attention to the first page. I don't want you to wait. You see what I'm saying? I want you to come out and bang, just like boom. I would much rather, my first choice would be is that all your pages look great. You finish and that you all get 70s and 1, which of course is what we're aiming for. But on the other hand, I would far prefer that your first page is better than your second. And it's just psychology. It's just psychology and a little common sense, which won't hurt you on the bar, believe it or not. Not the law necessarily, but learning how to take a test. Right? So I see your first page is bad. I flip to the end. I see you stopped in the middle, or I still see what's left of your outline, because most students will put their outline in before they start. Some of them, excuse me, some of them erase it, some of them don't. I mean, everyone you have to kind of weigh it. Some people say leave it in now. I've had several, bar prep people talking about how they will tell their students to leave it in, because at least it's a hint where you were going, so it might help. Personally, that sounds risky to me. I think you're just better off writing in conclusion, and then just pray. But you don't actually read the paper, or at least you have enough that it looks okay. I just don't know how many points I would give somebody for leaving a skeleton on the end. I call them skeletons, by the way. Skeletons on the end. I don't know.
I think that's what Nadia did for her baby bar when she passed.
Yeah,
Because she's like,
the baby bar, I don't worry about it as much. On the
With
bar,
the bar?
I'm just not sure. That's a good idea. But I've had people say both ways. I've had some people say, ooh, bad idea, because you didn't finish, right?
Mhm.
But then we have other persons, myself included, who say, yeah, but I'd rather look finished, right? I mean, I just don't know how many points they're going to give you for having this outline tacked on the end of your paper. I just don't think they will. So not in the bar. I think they pretty much expect you to finish, but yeah, it's changing all the time. So, and again, I was reading another article, not about the MBEs from the last test, but also the PTs were ridiculously bad, by the way. Oh, very low.
Did you say it was really easy? Well, it looked easier.
Well, they're not, I mean, again, they're not hard, but see, the problem with PTs, why people always clock, why, you know, PTs are never high flyers. But part of the reason for that is because they, even with, you can see it in any of the bar prep.
Oh, they just don't.
They just don't focus on it. They just assume that somewhere near the end, you're gonna, you know, take a couple of hours, a couple of days out of your life and figure them out. And yeah, some people do. You know, I'm not saying they don't. I mean, they don't need that much time. But a lot of students don't. They just sort of leave it to the very, very end, or they don't do it at all. I mean, that's not that uncommon. I mean, for some strange reason, that's what kind of happens. Is, you know, particularly in the past, it's like they would sort of like, well, I really think I need to do my MBEs. This is true to some degree too, but up until now, you had to pass all 3 sections, right? So what was the point of passing the MBEs and then not passing the PTs? You just have to be more like, just be able to write everything, you know, just be average. You're better just being average than you are being like better in one than the other. It boggles the imagination. It makes no sense at all. And it's a misunderstanding of how tests work, quite frankly, for the most part. So that's something you have to be, you know, kind of careful at. One of the other problems, I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again, and it's not just the bar, it's a lot of testing, a lot of classes and whatever else have you. But on the bar, it's very bad when you do this, is that students really, you have to acknowledge your shortcomings. You have to acknowledge what subject matter you're weakest in, and you have to keep attacking that until you at least bring it up to average. Students hate to do that, not just law students, all students hate to do that. They always want to be able to, yeah, again, it's sort of logical and sort of common sense, right? You want to write what you're good at. I don't care what you're good at. What I care about is what you're bad at because we need to bring that up. So I've heard students over the years, oh, I don't want to do any more civil procedure question, you know, multi-states. I'm like, why? Well, I'm really bad at them. Do more procedure multi-states. Don't do that because they're all worth the same points. So if you can kind of move away from law, if you can kind of, sounds horrible, but move away from law, move away from these types of things and just think, if I get 1440 points, they're going to give me my newly minted license. If I don't, they won't. It just doesn't have to go any further than that. It really doesn't, to be honest with you. And I just think that if you take that, that was kind of my attitude. And I think that that saved me an enormous amount of grief because I was more than happy to take my own advice, so to speak. Although again, back in those days, someone else told me that. I certainly didn't make that up. That's been around forever. You can do what you're poorest at. Do what you feel the least comfortable at, you know. You might notice this as you get closer to taking the bar too. I'm not so much with Barbary because Barbary is not a very personal service. I mean, everyone knows that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not going to get a tutor. You're not going to get a very much one-on-one at all. So if you're one of those persons that don't like that, the Barbary is really good for you. And again, Barbary does get results, so I wouldn't worry about it. They do have a way of getting students through, which is good, on a very wide basis, which is even better, quite frankly. But the thing is that you will see, you'll talk to people and they're invariably, and what they'll say to you is, like, they'll ask you how you're doing, and then they'll say, well, what do you not want to have on the test? That's code for, that's what you need to study, okay? So anybody who does bar prep or anything says to you, well, what is it that you don't want to see on the test? Okay. And they'll say, what do you want to see on the test? What do you don't want to see on the test? And the very first thing they'll say is why. I guarantee it, because we don't want to know what you want to have on the test. That means you actually feel comfortable. We want to know what you don't feel comfortable with first. We want to figure out where your strengths are and where your weakness is. And so what we want to do is we want to take due time from the strengths and put it over on the weakness. And we're trying to do what to you? We make you average. Okay, we don't want you to be up here for all, I mean, we'd love it if you were up here for every issue under the sun. But I can't begin to tell you how few students I've seen like that. I've seen a couple, who are like, this day I wonder what score they got. I have no idea. I just have no clue. And plus I think I told you that little story about one of my students that typed 110 words a minute. And of course she goes in theater. Isn't even a lawyer. I don't understand that at all. One of the best students I ever had. Ever, at any class. She doesn't even become a lawyer. I want to be in theater. No, it's her name. First name was Sandra. I won't tell you her last name. But she asked me if I thought she was going to get a model answer, and I said, no, your answers are too long. You're not going to waste the paper printing your answers. But when you saw her papers, but here's the deal, though. She was right. You sit there and you go, oh my God. And the things that she would remember were just beyond crazy. Just these really little things, I mean, she's one of those people that if there was ever a split of authority, you couldn't, I mean, that was like, she would always get those. And if there was something in the MPC, she'd always get those. And you're just like, oh my God. Wow, that's something else. But few and far between. And quite frankly, I say, good. Right? You don't have to be like that. Certainly not to pass the bar. You don't. And that's what you want to do, right? I mean, that's what you want to do. I mean, it will save you a lot of grief if you buy into my logic, by the way. You won't worry as much. Because when you turn it into a point game, it's kind of like a what? Now it's all of a sudden like a casino. Now you're talking about how do I get the odds on my favor? Okay, because now you can see it. It's easier to see success if it's a number, isn't it? Than just thinking about, I have to write about the law. I mean, when I think about it that way, I get very, I mean, I'm really glad. I mean, just think, you were in my common law class, right? What if I wrote half the stuff that I say in that class for the bar? What do you think would happen to me? I wouldn't be sitting here today. By any stretch of the imagination. Now, I wouldn't be wrong, but the bar's not the place to wax and wane philosophically about what George Washington thought in 1787. It's just not necessary. What you're better off is say, is this justiciable? Right? But that's what it is. And so it's easier to think about points, though, because justiciable doesn't become the issue anymore. Now the issue becomes, how many points do I get for that? And that's a very different issue. And that makes, for my experience, that makes test taking much easier. When I started to do that, test taking got much easier. Now, one of the problems that probably the three of you had is your undergraduate completely and utterly discards what I just said. Basically, undergraduate learning for the most part is tell me everything you know that you learned over the year. Some of it will probably answer the question that I asked you, and then move on. Very imprecise, I don't have enough words for it today, but I think back, I went to, as you might recall or not, UCLA, got my undergraduate degree, and I think back now, and the papers that I wrote, I mean, if you were to write those for law school, just I mean, I barely paid attention to the questions. I just said, oh yeah, this is my class on Greek history. I read all about Greek history. Yeah. That was the end of the story, right? And then, of course, I had the absolute unbelievable foresight to decide to change my major to painting from political science. So to this day, can't believe that. Anyways, then when I look back, I just go, what was I thinking back then? And so I changed the painting, and then of course I have no idea whatsoever how to take a test anymore, because when you're, one of the best things about being in the fine art program, and particularly if you're going to be a painter or something like that, you know, or a sculptor or something, it's like, you know, you just have your final exhibit every 10 weeks, right? And so, you know, what do you do for 9 weeks? You drink beer and eat Doritos, sour cream. That was my thing, you know. Well, I have to do what? The hardest thing that I had to do when I was an art major was get up for a morning class. I think that was about the most challenging thing I did, because I didn't like morning classes, and some of the classes were only started at 8, so I'd be like, ugh. But other than that, you know, you basically learn how to do everything at the end. So it's not very conducive, quite frankly, to law in any way, shape, or form. But it is what it is, right? And through these myriads of experience, it sort of has molded my thinking about test taking, right? And I'll give you the bottom line of all test taking is what you should do. And you should do it, if you're not doing it to some degree already, you should be somewhat conscious about this now, is just get your ego out of it as much as you possibly can. These people don't know who you are. They don't know the totality of what you can and cannot do. They are testing for the simple reason that they think that it would be in society's interest for you to show somebody at some time that you might have been awake during your classes, because they know they told you this, right? They know they told you this. Now they just want to see how much of it you remember. Because if you remember enough of it on one day, then for whatever reasons, the power that be feel that society is now protected. Am I wrong? He's not wrong. I'm completely 100% right. And I'll tell you why I know that, by the way, too, which is over the years I've actually studied learning. You can actually study learning. It's actually one of my favorite words of all time. Now you have to be very careful when you use it because it's pedagogy. So I always have to tell people that I'm really into pedagogy, and that has nothing to do with pedophilia. But pedagogy is the study of learning. I'm sure you guys probably did that, but anyways.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, of course, because everybody cares, right? And so what you learn is that one of the things they teach you, what they teach you when you take pedagogy, is that the United States system of education, since its inception, is flawed, because it's based on punishment and what you don't know. It's based on punishing you for what you don't know. Think about it for a little while when you were in grade school and stuff like that.
Sure.
They're punishing you for what you don't know. They don't test you on what you know. You're supposed to know everything, and when you don't, they punish you. That's why you get bad grades. It has nothing to do with, you know, any number of other attributes that you might have. It has nothing to do with how, you know, you actually might learn or not learn, right? It's just one way that's basically makes it easier on people to teach big groups of people. And that's the problem with the American education system. And I think there's not a single person who teaches. Now, I've never heard of anyone who taught pedagogy that wouldn't say that. You know, that the United States, it's been flawed since its inception, because it's always been there and not here. Whereas the more modern trend is to try at least to get people to show, you know, I say this, and again, it means something a little different to me, but again, it's maybe catching on with you as well, which is show what you know. That's much more interesting, right? I mean, don't you think we should have tests where you get to show what you know? rather than sort of having this blanket kind of, collage of different types of things that I guess society thinks are important. So they want to see, they want you to, I don't know what they want to do, what you want to do with them. But, there's a big controversy right now, and then I'll get back to why I care about this. Because again, one of the things we try to do in this class, learn how to take tests, right? We do a lot of that, but this is the time to do it. But one of the other things it's raging controversy right now, and I think, I don't know what's going to happen in the next few years, but I know that in your lifestyle, in your lifetime, you will see a proliferation of trade schools. There's no doubt in my mind that looking at everything being equal right now, that there's going to be droves and droves of people that are going to flee the education system unless they manage to bring it down, right, to a manageable price. And if they manage to get a grip on making it relevant so that we can churn out engineers, so that we can turn out, professionals, that we can turn out people that can compete with the rest of the world. Because right now, we ain't doing so hot on either of those things. And so what you're starting to see, that's why, for instance, and if you ask me how I know that this is the trend, first of all, because there's more vocational schools popping up now than in many, many years. But also look at COD. What's going on in COD? They're morphing into a 4-year college, but at the same time, they're adding vocational classes all the time, and these certificate classes all the time. And they're growing leaps and bounds. And not even within your lifetime, but at probably as early as 2025, it'll be free. I'd be shocked if COD isn't free within the next 5 to 7 years.
How would they manage funding for that? How would they manage funding to be free?
Well, I don't know, ask friends. Again, it's where you put your money. I mean, that's always an issue, but it's always an issue. It's where you want to put your money. That's what it's all about. I mean, it sounds like heretical in the United States, but I've got your answer. You ready?
Mhm.
Build one less battleship. There you go. You can go to junior college now. It's just how you want to spend your money. And that's what people have to decide, right? Good, bad, and indifferent. But anyway, so that's some of the things that I think you may have noticed we've been doing in the class. Right? Learning about how to take a test, how to write, how to handle a little pressure, learning how to fill in the blanks, right? Although you guys don't look like you don't feel the burn yet, do you?
I do.
Actually, you probably do in this class. So anyways, it's a lot of writing in this class. So don't think I don't know that. A lot of writing in this class. But it's really good for you to do this now, because it's going to make your life for the next year a little more understandable and I think a little more tolerable. All right? Okay, so that's part of what we do in this class as well. Just in case you've ever wondered about it. It's interesting because it's a performance class. And these are the things that you get into in performance classes. Imagine if this was a lab class, right? I'd want to make sure that you're not blowing stuff up, right? Same kind of thing. I want to make sure that you're going to be lawyers. You got to be good writers. You don't even really have to be a good speaker to be a good lawyer. A lot of lawyers are not good speakers by any stretch of the imagination, and vice versa, by the way. But it just depends what you want to do. But I do think that on some level, you have to be able to write some documents at some level, or at least if you have someone doing it for you, you have to have some idea what a good document looks like. Make sure that's something that goes out. I can't begin to tell you not the end of the world damage, but you can have a lot of damage by writing a client letter that looks like a letter to opposing counsel. That can do an enormous amount of harm to your relationship with your client and to your case. As they say in the business, your biggest handicap in your practice will be your clients. And I assure you that is absolutely 100% true. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I would rather deal with opposing counsel all day to be blunt than work with clients. So, although that's not 100% true, it depends who the client is, but you know, for the most part, I mean, this is a funny story, but I was telling someone the other day about it. I actually have a client. I have a client who has been my client for almost the entire time that I was a lawyer, for almost the entire 19 years. Do you know how many times we've been in the same room together? Never. Never. He lives down in LA and I live up here. And we've actually never been in the same room together. Isn't that strange? But he's like my favorite client that I've ever had of all time. Every 6 months I send him a check and he's the happiest camper under the sun. The music guy, musician. But I've actually never been, and I have actually had many clients over the years, not quite that long. I never met them. Never. You know, not even once. They have no idea what I look like, none whatsoever. I know what they look like, because you know, most of them are musicians. So I can find them, right? They have no idea what I look like. They have no idea. As a matter of fact, some of them have no idea what I do. They just know I send a check every so often, and their manager says, yeah, he's doing his job. Okay. Fine with me. So client skills are good as well, those kind of things. And also, this is you guys have trial prep, right? Trial prep this year too. See how we're trying to get you into the real world now. We're trying to get you to do things now, but I don't want you to forget about that speed bump that you've got to take in July. Okay? But we got to get to the point where all of you think it's a speed bump, right? Isn't that the best attitude to have? It's just a speed bump, right? We're going to get over it, we're going to move on. The alternative is just, I think it's untenable, right? Do you all agree with me? The alternative is untenable. Why in the world go to law school for in my case, 4.5 years to get stuck on a hamster wheel? Why? You wouldn't do it in anything else in your life, ever. You ever think about that? When have you ever done something like that before? Yeah, I think I'll do all this preparation and all this stuff, and then I'll make sure I fail for the next 3 years. What in the world? Give me another example of that in your life. There aren't many, right? Most of your life you've been able to succeed. This is actually true if you think about it. If you think about that sometimes, you actually succeed more than you fail in life. But we don't think about the successes. We don't. We just think about the failures. Maybe that's a good thing because you learn more from failure than success, by the way. But, yeah. Okay? So that's where we want to be. That's what we're doing. That's where we want to be. Okay. That's what we do. This class, that's part of the learning process. You're supposed to become better learners in this class. You know, there's not just better teachers, there's better learners as well. And when the two come together, that's when things start to happen. Really, honest with you. I said this before, it's not as facetious as it sounds, but when people say to me, well, how do you explain teaching? It's like, I don't think it's very hard to explain teaching at all. I just think it's an exchange. That's what I think it is. I think it's an exchange between people, regardless of what side it is. But I will tell you that we do have different jobs. And my job is, well, I'll tell you what your job is. Your job is to tell me what you think. My job is to tell you what I know. That's the only difference. And once you've thought it through, guess what? When does student become master? There you go. What is the difference between the student and the master? Does anybody know?
One gets paid.
Well, not back in, Shaolin time or anything like that. No, you got to sweet back then. Yes,
one gets paid, one pays.
But the bottom line is the master has failed more times than the student has tried. Think about it. That's absolutely 100% true, I'm telling you. Never be afraid of failure. Failure is actually your best friend. You learn way more from failure than you ever word for success. So, anyways.
Just don't fail the bar.
Well, like, make that part of your mission. Don't fail the bar. Right? I mean, you know, what's wrong with that? I think that's it's a perfectly legitimate statement
Oh, it is.
for you to come up to me and say, I don't want to fail the bar. Good. You're being smart. That to me makes a lot of sense. These people who are like, oh, if I fail it the first time, I'll take it the second time. No, you won't. Your best chance is to pass it the first time. So just do it. Statistics tell us your best chance of passing the bar is the first time. So just do it. That's, you know, that really resonated with me when I took the bar. Your best shot is to pass it the first time. Good. Sounds good to me. And so, the painter passes the bar the first time. That won't hit you the same way it hits me. But that's like, I look back now and I'm like, what was I thinking? I was out of my mind going to law school. Wasn't the first time. Won't be the last. Anyways. Okay, so let's take a peek. What do we got here? Anybody else have any more questions about the bar? Yes, no, maybe. No, because I want to kind of, you know, if we can continue the trend of talking about half and half. If we can, I think that's how this class tends to work pretty well. So, but today I don't have that much for you because today's just our review. So I'm not going to overload you with other stuff today. Yeah, I mean, you'll have plenty to do on Saturday. So, what other classes do you have?
Wills and trusts.
Wills and trusts.
And then trial advocacy.
Trial advocacy. Yeah. So you got lots to do. How about that? Now, do I get to see everyone in a tie, suit and tie?
Eventually.
Eventually, not this time.
Not this time, though?
I think it's right around, it's the last 2 weeks of the semester.
Okay.
So the first 2 weeks of December,
Right with closing.
something like that.
Okay. I said
Not this weekend.
I said it on the
It's due Thursday.
I said I should have.
Oh, I thought you said I should spend time this weekend working. I was like, okay, go ahead, spend it this weekend. You gotta give it on Thursday.
You should like, you do that well.
You do that well.
You do that.
By the way, what are you guys doing on that for your midterm?
Nothing.
Oh, no.
We don't have one.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the 2 questions in wills and trusts and the
That's
2
right.
PTs.
Thank you. Now I understand. I forgot all about that. I thought you were giving a presentation or something.
No, that's our final.
That's
For the final case.
Yeah.
That we still don't have yet.
That's when I get to see you all dressed like an undertaker.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, just remember the friendliest trust color is blue.
And that is what color my suit is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Friendliest trust color is blue. More people will trust you if you wear a blue suit than any other color, just because it's blue. If you want to come off as kind of a, so you would be the nice lawyer if you're wearing blue. If you want to come off like the Sharky lawyer, or you want to come off like, a strict by the book lawyer, wear gray. Because gray is perceived as being kind of colorless and get to the job. If you want to be perceived as harmless, wear green or wear brown. Because lawyers don't wear green or brown.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
No one looks good in the green or brown suit.
So you'll come off as kind of, but that's the thing is, I remember being in court one day and, well, I will tell you quite frankly that my suits went from, I had one blue suit, when I started, I had a blue suit, a gray suit, and a brown suit. Seriously, those were like the 3 colors that I had, right? And so at the beginning of my career, I used a blue suit because of what I just told you. As I moved forward and I started to move up in the world, so to speak, and started interacting with more attorneys than I had been doing in the beginning, I started wearing the gray suit. See, the gray suits are better for other attorneys than they are for juries and things like that. But by the time I was getting out of litigation and I was in the court all the time, or more than I wanted to be anyways, I was wearing my brown suits, or brown suits. Because by then I was getting a lot of gray hair. And so what happened was, I know that sounds kind of strange, and I think act, but I didn't do it on purpose, honestly. No, I didn't. But I sort of went from being the brash upstart, wanting to please lawyer, to the I got this down lawyer, to the I just want to make juries happy lawyer. Don't ask. So by the end, when I started, I was Perry Mason. By the end, I was backlog. What can I tell you? That's the way the world goes. I don't know which show's better. So, all right, on that note, it would be really great one day someone will watch these videos and say, what is he talking about? I've got that before. A lot, especially in common law over the years. What are you talking about? Trust me, it's genius. I don't know. I don't know. It's common law. Why do you do that to me? Maybe so. Okay, so let's take a peek at what we've actually, let's go ahead. Let's take a peek at what we actually learned in this class. Okay. What I think you should be aware of is I'm aware of. I think you know. See how that works? Okay. First of all, the very first thing we did was we had a it's a little easier for me to do it that way. Please. Alright. So the first week we just had kind of an introduction, right? We went over the syllabus. Then we talked about critical thinking, right? We talked about the idea that really before you go to law school, society really does not demand that you think critically. It's really not necessary. And that's why a lot of law students, particularly, the number one reason why students find law difficult in their first year is because they're not used to critical thinking. You can say it's a lot of reading, but most of them can handle that. Most of them can, fill in the blank. But it's really the critical thinking component, because you're asked to actually use logic in a way that you just aren't asked to in normal everyday life. People are allowed to generalize in everyday life. People are allowed to look at, Shakespeare's birthday and say, well, maybe he was born April 23rd, maybe he wasn't. Why do I care? You're allowed to do that in the real world. You're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to be imprecise in many, many different ways that you're not allowed when you study law, because we're not asking you anymore to think in a generalized kind of, I'll make it through the day manner. You're asked to come and become critical thinkers. We talked about the idea that critical thinking actually, if you want to boil it down, it's the concept that whenever you say something, right, whenever you posit something as true, that you have a basis for saying it's true. You have some kind of evidentiary basis that in fact what you're saying is true. You don't have to do that in real life. You don't. Think about it. What for? No one's going to ask you. Right? You can say any number of things. 99.9% of the time, nobody's going to ask you how you know that, why you know that, or care what the actual answer is anyways, because you could be right and you could be wrong. But in a court of law, you're asked to actually present facts that support your position, because we, in our own way, do actually want to get at the truth, which is what you should want to do as well. That's critical thinking. That there is a basis for saying what you have, and that basis does equal what you're now, proposing to be the truth, guilt, innocence, right? That not so? That's so. So that's what really throws students in the first year, is they're just not used to that. And you shouldn't be, by the way. You might be if you work in a law office or something, or maybe you're one of your parents, or maybe one of your closer relatives might be a lawyer or something like that. But you always probably thought of them as weird or odd. Like, why do they care? Why do they care? And you go from like saying, why do they care, to like demanding that people actually answer the question you ask them. Oh, now you're critically thinking. You see, you've gone through that process now. And now you're actually able to see, one, when people are not answering the question, you're actually positive to them. but you also can very easily see when it is apparent they have no actual basis for that statement. 2, 3, you know they're lying. So, you know, all of you are probably good at spotting liars. Lawyers are excellent at it. They are excellent. If you can fool me now, you are really good. I will tell you that. If you can lie to me and fool me at this point, you're good. You scare me. And it does happen every so often. I'll get fooled, you know, by something or another. Not often though. And so that what comes from practicing critical thinking, if nothing else. Right? Gave that whole presentation, remember that whole thing about, you know, what critical thinking is and why it's valuable. And as I recall, there's even some pages in there that suggest things that you might want to do, things you might want to try. You might want to just practice or get into your everyday routines, you know, things that actually make you a better critical thinker. Now, the thing that I also think is very important about that is that one of the, there's several different qualities that I think are very attractive in a future lawyer's personality, if that makes any sense, and also in lawyers once they become lawyers and things of that nature. But what I think is the one that makes me question whether, and the lack of makes me question whether you should be a lawyer or not, is lack of curiosity. The better lawyers that I've always known have always been very curious people. You don't have to ask them to look up something, they just do. Right? They're just interested in it. They're just interested in adding to their knowledge. They're interested in what they can learn. They're interested in looking into how things work. They're interested in, you know, all these different things. And then of course at some point when you start to buy into our entire logic, you start making little, you know, you start putting the chains together, right? You start going A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. Then all of a sudden you're putting chains together. That's actually what you do in BIRAC. You sort of discovering, you know, you find the legal issue, then you figure out what you have to do about it, then you put the chain of facts together to see if you can fit the elements or not, right? I mean, really, that's what you do when you're a lawyer to a great degree. And strange but true. So when I posit it to you that way, though, it makes a lot of sense that you would be curious about things, that you would want to add to your knowledge, that you know, fill in the blank. And that could be any number of things, you know, God knows what, you know. But anyways, that's what I think about such things. So we kind of started you with that, right? A little bit about critical thinking, which is really more important than you think. Most students that I've had, when I ask them in the first year, I don't usually ask now, but in the first year, if they'd ever heard of critical thinking, they usually said no. The great number of students I would say that I have had do not actually understand the concept of critical thinking in their first year. I can't say nobody ever does. That's not true. And I can't say that it's such an overwhelming number that don't know, but it's somewhere like 50-50, maybe 60-40 on the side of don't know. It's somewhere in there. But by the end of law school, usually you figure out what it is. So I can tell you that when I started law school, I barely knew what it was because I had one class in logic. And that was the very first time I had heard the idea of critical thinking, and I was 19 years old. And then I thought to myself, what have I been doing all this time? I don't do this. I don't care if A equals B and B equals C. I like pizzas with pineapple and jalapenos. That's what I'm going to get. Sorry. You know. Did you know the hot pizza right now is cauliflower pizza? It's all the rage, by the way.
The crust, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's gluten-free and healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, everyone always emails me these things. Well, you're a vegetarian, so you must want to try that. Well, I do. But,
No problem to like it. I want to try it.
Exactly. There you go.
No, my uncle eats it because he has celiac disease. And he only just found out like this year that he has celiac disease. And so now he's trying to like completely rework his diet because he can't eat anything. And he actually likes it. He's like, it actually just tastes like pizza.
Oh yeah.
Just like it's a really good gluten-free option. He goes, I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to, but he goes, if I'm gonna eat it, he's like, I'd rather eat that.
All right. Well, I'll let
So
you
it's
guys-
not terrible.
Okay.
It's not amazing, but it's not terrible.
Where do you get this? Like, I mean, like, is it just
You can get
available?
it like Ralph's and
Yeah,
Albertsons.
it's available.
It's like a frozen pizza.
They said you can get it now out here. It's pretty much all over the place.
Basically, you probably go to Whole Foods and get it.
So you can buy a pizza crust that's made out of.
You can either buy the pizza crust that's made out of cauliflower, or they have like frozen pizzas that are all pre-made that have cauliflower crust.
See, I always think Sprouts, but that's because it's really close to the house. So.
It's another
I bet
healthy,
they have it
it's
there.
another healthy store. Or Bristol Farms, or
Oh yeah,
I
that's.
can't afford Bristol Farms, so.
I used to live Bristol Farms, but I lived down in Manhattan Beach, so my favorite place to go for lunch. Anyway, so yeah, I'll let you know. But that's the hard thing, you know. But so that's now you know what critical thinking is, and again, for what it's worth. But I think, for my 2 cents, whenever I think about critical thinking too, I think it really does. It depends way more on kind of things like curiosity than it does on memory. Notice that when you talk about critical thinking, you don't talk a lot about memory. And persons that have good memories don't necessarily make good lawyers, by the way. That's actually a fallacy that people think if you have a photographic memory that you're going to be a good lawyer. I've known lawyers who have had photographic memories and they're not that great, to be honest with you. Because to them, their memory is everything. They come to rely on it in their lives, and they forget to actually apply it to what's going on. So let's imagine someone says, well, the case of so-and-so, applies to your case. Let me tell you what page 895 says. Okay, they'll actually do it for you. It's kind of amazing. But then if you turn to them and you say, but what is the connection between that and your client's case? And they go, what? What? Okay, so that's what the judge is going to ask you is why did you just read? Why does that apply to your case? Why should your client be interested in that? And I said, that's exactly what the judge is going to ask you. And certain enough, that's what they do. They say, well, Mr. So-and-so, why is that relevant to your case? And he looks at them like, because it is. Okay. Gotta go beyond the photographic memory. That won't win the day. It'll get you, it's pretty flashy sometimes, I have to say. You're sitting there and you're going through all the papers and going, well, Your Honor, on page 94, let me look it up and all this stuff. And there's this other cool cat, always in a gray suit, right? Well, on page 649, second paragraph, footnote 4, in the actual diary of Judge Tommy, he wrote, and then you're like, he's right. But then you say, well, why does that matter in this case? Because it does is not a good reason, just so you know. That's what's called what? Circular logic. Why was the Supreme Court decision the right decision? Because the Supreme Court decided it. I actually had a lawyer say that to me.
It's true.
On one level, it is true. Unfortunately,
There's no one else to tell them they're wrong.
Yeah.
So they're.
Well, the answer
is what they
because
say.
it's presidential law and you're a lawyer. I mean, you don't want to say it to just, but like, because it's presidential law,
truly, but you gotta ask them, but was it a good, well-reasoned decision? Do you think this was a logical extension?
No, but it
Well,
helps
for
my
our
case.
Yes,
So
for
yes.
our case, then yes.
Absolutely.
For society, no. But for our case, yes.
Absolutely. How could it be questioned that
It's settled law.
until it's not? But that's the best part about the Supreme Court. Everyone always says, "Oh, this is settled."
Until
It's funny, except the Supreme Court, nothing's ever really settled. That's the whole point. You just have cases that last longer than others. So, what they're there for, to some degree. Okay, so we talked a lot about that. Then, of course, you had your first assignment, right? A lot of the early assignments in this class, just trying to build on some of the basic, tools of the trade, so to speak. And we learned all about, we learned about Shakespeare, then we learned about Ferris Bueller, then we learned about World War II, and then we learned about Jesus. It's even kind of good props that way, huh? Anyway, so we did a lot of that. And again, some things there just are no answers. That's just the way it is. After that, what we did was, although I waited a little bit for it, but I just want to talk about it now very quickly because it's still ongoing. We also received very early on in the class, I want to remind everybody, your return paper, right? That's due the last week of class. And you were asked to go ahead. It's this famous Benjamin Franklin High School graduation, right? Paper. Everyone knows that that's an ongoing process. Again, very important paper because this is the one where you actually get to do the research. And so the better your research is, the better off you're going to be when you write your paper. Very important. I cannot stress to you, if you're going to be litigators, you have to understand case law. I mean, you do anyway, virtually no matter what the law is. But particularly if you're going to be in litigation, you absolutely, positively must understand case law. You have to. And among other things, you absolutely, positively must become good researchers, or at least have a good researcher who you know what good research is. That's fine too. I mean, I don't think that you expect to go through your entire careers doing your own research. That's fine with me. But if you don't know what good research is, and you don't do that, trust me, do not if you've been with a paralegal for like 10 years, you want to let a little bit slip, fine. But until that point, don't do it. Know what good research looks like, and you'll figure out ways to check it really quickly too. It's not hard in AA, right? You sort of just use the internet machine or the program you have. Plus, I trust that after this class, all of you will hit the Shepherdize button, right? And what are you going to do? Just one last time before you go in or before you submit papers to court? Just Shepherdize one last time. It doesn't happen often, but every so often newer cases come up, and you didn't look at that issue for a week or two, or whatever it is. It's pretty rare when you get one that day. I have to admit, I've never really heard of it having that happen yet. But I have heard of cases coming out 2 to 3 weeks before that just forget to Shepherdize at the end, right? And so the other case makes it into the other person's paperwork. Now there's a big 2018 on their paper, and then this thing you have is 2017. What's that called? Bad start. Because you're going to get killed with that case. I mean, your only hope now is pray that it really doesn't matter, right? Or that they're wrong. It really doesn't apply to whatever part of the case, because otherwise you have no answer for it. And woe to you if, in fact, this 2018 case overruled or changed the part of the 2017 case that you were using. And I have heard of that happening to a couple of attorneys. Not often, thank heavens, but it's those kinds of things that make you learn. How long does it take? Seriously, just look at the cases. Here's the table of cases. Just Shepherdize it. Just look at the flags and see if they're the same, and just see that nothing else comes up different, right? You don't have to reread it or anything. Just make sure that all of your sources are, all your authority is good. That's all. It'll save you an enormous amount of grief someday. See, if you do that, then you'll never know what I'm talking about right now. Otherwise, you might. That's when you'll send me that email. I hate you. Did you know that you were right? I am right.
I was thinking about this. We once had a opposing counsel who stepped out of procedural rules entirely and wrote a re-reply. Straight up. And the judge read it, didn't give a crap. And I was shocked because it didn't have anything like that. Like I thought it must have had something like he forgot something or whatever. No, he just wanted to reply to our reply.
And the judge allowed it?
Yeah, didn't care at all.
We just had something where we submitted it.
It seemed like you could just breach the rules and
Yeah, we had another one where they did a motion, they went in and argued it, he took it under submission. Complainant's counsel's like, I'm gonna write a supplemental brief, even though the judge didn't ask for it. And we have Minnesota attorneys that are on the case with us, and they're like, can you do that? And we're like,
No, but it's California.
no. And they're like, well, we want to reply to it.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, technically you can't, but technically they couldn't, so do whatever you want. And they did. They filed their reply to the supplemental brief, and the judge appreciated it. But it's like, you're just kind of messing with all the rules. I mean,
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you know how a reply is only allowed to be 5 pages. And it's supposed to be like, if there's anything wrong, like, you know, clear it up. But no, they just wrote a complete reply.
On the flip side, just so you know, 2 stories come to mind. The first one was that, at least back in the good old days, you know, I never had that happen. Never, not once did that ever happen to me. But on the other hand, not to me, but in our office, well, partly the office, I'm not going to tell you which one. But anyways, your paper, we were filing a paper, and the limit was 15 pages long, right? We wrote 17, right? The judge took the 2 pages and ripped them out and threw it out.
That's within his prerogative. I mean, he
And
could
he said,
also.
he goes, not only am I not gonna read it, I have no idea what's in it. Too bad. And I'm like, he just, okay. The second one I heard, and that happened. Anyways, but the other one was, you're supposed to use 12-point type, and this lawyer, I know, used 11.5. And the judge was ready to go to jail. And he said, I don't know if I should even read this. And I did, but he said, if you do that again, yeah, that's contempt of court, that's, I'm gonna turn you into the bar, I'm going to just, yeah, no. That's pretty cheesy. He said, you know, and he was very upset. So he said, you thought I was gonna kill you. What, you know? The pages turn out yet. And I'm thinking, what's in the last few pages? Oh man. Anyway, so yeah, I've never had that happen to me.
Weird, yeah.
Filing. I mean, usually it's really hard just to get people filing paper. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so very important though that you learn to do research. That's the whole point. And so I'm really looking for some good stuff on this Ben Franklin paper. That's the one that I think, for my purposes anyways, you have the most opportunities to impress me. All the other stuff, I just want you to be fast. I mean, that's the bottom line. I want you to be fast on all the other stuff. I want you to be, logical and fast. That's about it, really. Or organized and fast would be the two things I would point out. And again, please feel free to be cool and to the point. Again, nice things. It will get you places with me. Don't like students or other lawyers that ramble on. It doesn't. You'd be very surprised. It's like one of the reasons I'm such a good editor is because I used to look at my opponent's papers and I would take a red pen, just not reading. This is garbage. I'm not going to read it again. I'd be sitting there with this red pen. Should have known I was going to be a professor someday. Should have known. I don't know. Should have known. But they just blab on and on and on about stuff. It's just, okay, you don't have to fill all 15 pages. Of course, my last 2 pages were genius. How dare you do that? Anyway, so I'm looking for that. Hopefully by now you've probably been curious enough to at least look into it, look around, maybe see what the deal is, what you might have to deal with. I recommend you do not wait to the last minute. I do know what I want. Right? I've seen these papers a lot already, so you have to live up to what the persons that came before you. And some of the papers have been pretty good. Very interesting. So we'll see. But anyone find the case yet?
I think we found it like I found it like the second week or something.
Okay,
Next thing.
From New York.
I have it right here.
Second Circuit. 1988.
Maybe.
It's a pretty specific set of circumstances. I mean, you get a Jewish kid that wants graduation not on that.
Yeah. But it doesn't cover all three issues. It only covers one of the three issues.
Yeah, it only covers one though. You're gonna have to go outside to do the other two. It's not relevant to the other two. But it does solve your main problem, and that would be obviously,
It's only one of the 9 cases that we need.
yeah, well, you need 9. And-
That's what I mean. It's only one of the 9.
But this is the one that I would go well on, and I first, obviously. Gets rid of your biggest impediments. The other ones are, I don't avoid the whole thing, but the way that I see it is, first one's a pretty good argument, second one, you can argue, the third one, I tacked it on the end of my paper if I was filing the suit. I don't think it has that much, but but some students are very creative and they write the most amazing things. And so it's okay with me. I mean, to some degree, don't have on about stuff, don't throw out crazy stuff, but occasionally I see something that I'm like, wow, I never thought about that. Happens every so often, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good thinking. So that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so any other questions about that? Alon was right here today. Do you have any questions for me at this point about that case? We're in pretty good shape. Okay, next thing we did was we went into legal research. Right? We talked about the idea that when you're a lawyer, you don't really make any decisions. For the most part, your job in life is just to present to the judge, for the most part, that in fact, it is in everyone's best interest just to rely on precedent, apply the precedent to my client's situation, and to just keep that venerable chain of cases going. That's the case you want, right? And so what's the best way to do that? Right? The judge is going to say, well, I'm not going to do it because you think I should. And then you say back, well, what about the Supreme Court of California? What about what they said? And what does he say? Hey, show me the money. Okay, there it is right there. Follow this line of cases. This is how we do stuff in the United States, right? You got your statute, it may or may not be clear. Hopefully you'll have some case law that will clarify the statute and show why, in fact, we have that bright line. Your client falls on this side, right? And everyone will be happy. Otherwise, you're risking an appeal. Otherwise, you're filling the ball, overturned. Otherwise, you're whatever else happy. And so that's greatly what you do over and over and over again when you're an attorney. So that's one of the things about being an attorney, which is odd. Some attorneys are so good at doing things over and over and over again. Other attorneys are really bad at it. They got to monkey with it every time and try to change it and stuff. That's what I did. You knew that was me. It's like, well, how can I make this better? You can't just put in the paperwork. But I've got this. No, you don't have that many great attorneys. Every so often you surprise people, but it's fewer and far between than you think. I've had people tell me that. And it's like, one day, I won't be working in this office anymore, and I'll see you on the other side. Anyways, okay. Primary authority, golden, right? Secondary authority, I would not shirk it, right? I mean, you show the judge a lot when you throw that in. I can't say that there are some judges who may not appreciate secondary authority. They don't seem to. I mean, just you run across them sometimes. They just want to know why they should or shouldn't rule for you, and that's the end of it. But I would say that overwhelmingly, most of the judges that I've dealt with appreciate secondary authority. They appreciate when you show that you've actually looked at the issues, that you actually not only have case law, but you look behind the case laws, like what these justices or judges before may have actually relied on, and that you're actually capable of explaining certain things in ways that someone who doesn't look at secondary sources will not be able to do. So in my opinion, I always tried to throw one in if I could. And sometimes you just can't. I understand that too. Sometimes it's just, there's no point. We all know that. This is beyond the point of throwing in secondary. But a lot of times you can. And if you can, right, if there's a raging controversy, isn't it nice to have the experts on your side? Yeah, well, where do you get that from? That's where you get the secondary stuff from. You get to throw around names, right? If you're in California, you get to throw around Witkin for just about anything. You can still do it. When you're in copyright like I was, you throw around Nimmer's book on copyrights, and whatever Nimmer says, that's what everybody does, right? Well, not everything he says, he wasn't the judge, he wasn't primary authority, but everyone always wanted to know, we're on copyright, because this guy wrote that book. So very important to be able to do that, right? To know it's very good to know what the sources are. It's very good to think. It's very good to have an up-to-date office. All these things play into this. And honestly, you can't, to some degree, I would argue you can't be a lawyer if you can't do this. I just don't know how. There are some types of law I guess you could still do, but I'm just saying that, I don't know. I don't know. You have to know, it sounds almost ironic, but if you want to be a lawyer, I suppose you should know the law. That's where it is. That's what the game is all about, so to speak. It was buying into that, you know what I'm saying? Going into that tradition, going into, that's what the three of you sitting here right now, that's what you're telling me, is that's what you want to do, right? You want to be able to work the law. Now, that may not be true. I think for you three it is, but I do have students that, again, will come out of school and never practice a day in their life. They just like law because it's a scholastic or intellectual pursuit. I understand that too, but when I went to law school, it's all about coming out and passing the bar the first time and being a lawyer. Right? It's pay back my student loans. All that good stuff, right? All that good stuff. Anyway, so, all right. The next thing we did in this class is we talked about legal citation, right? I would argue that I would learn as much as this as I possibly can, that I do think that you could learn more. I did the best I could, right? But I don't think you had a lot of this otherwise, right? Might be helpful. There are free classes in it all over the place, free online tutorials and things like that. And you just might, practice a little bit from time to time and just learn. One of the things I'd love to do, honestly, I would love to send you guys on a scavenger hunt and get to the library and just find this. Well, we don't do that anymore. So, but I did put you one on the net, didn't I? To do a little scavenger hunt on the net. But we used to have to do ours in the library. And I did tell you that those famous stories, though, about how one of the reasons they don't do them in the libraries anymore is because somehow the books would disappear and the cases would get ripped out from our library. That happened at my school several times. It happened to me. I went in this book and you had to find something and you could see where somebody had just ripped the pages out.
Stressed out law student right there. That's my case!
Yeah, really.
Just go right home with this!
So fortunately, cool, calm, collected, up to Malibu, Pepperdine, the law school. Well, I don't know what the one would be out here, but the Pepperdine library was open to everybody. And you don't even have to be a law student. It's just anybody who wanted to go and study law, they would let you in. And so we took off and just, drove over to Malibu and went there. But that was a good, couple hours out of my life that I certainly at that point, first year student, could have used somewhere else, right? That's when you start to look around and go, so who am I in the school with? I don't know about you guys, but that seems a little extreme to me.
I do it. You're not getting those cases.
What's that?
I said I'd do it.
For about most cases?
You're not getting those.
Wait, were they doing it to prevent some? I think they just were like, they were like,
They were.
I'm going home right now and I'm writing this. And they just.
Possible.
Nah, they just wanted you to have a mental breakdown because you can't do it, and there's two people, there's two types of people in this world.
Yeah, those are the shovel and those who dig.
Although nowadays you just Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays you go,
Nowadays, like, why do you have to go to the library?
I know.
there's
Like,
no way.
Do you have
Who cares if they ripped out the pages? It's online.
I mean, we were allowed to do that back then. That would have been not good. This is a library thing. Anyways, but that didn't seem odd to us back then. So, anyways, okay. So again, legal citation, really important stuff, though, right? We have to understand the scheme of thing where all this stuff comes in, right? And so it's really very important. And theoretically, at some rate, you're supposed to be able, if there isn't a site, you should be able to actually write sites for yourself at a certain point, because there actually is the blue book, which is nothing else, it's a style book. So you actually should be able to. I mean, it may sound funny, but particularly if you're an intellectual property, okay, so how do you cite Batman number 267, page 15? Because that's the page that you're claiming somebody copied, or whatever you're claiming, or that's your example of how you have to be able to cite that. If in fact, you want to use something like that, you're supposed to be able to cite it. Now, there's probably,
There's a copier. It's called Exhibit 2.
yeah. Not that you're always going to cite it, but I'm just saying, but you theoretically are supposed to be able to cite that, because everything is, everything can be, yeah. Is that a word?
I think citable is a word.
Because I usually just say reduce the citation. That's how I get out of it. But yeah, I think recitable.
There's an engine for that on
Recitable,
Google
citable.
somewhere where I can put in the
And
information.
there actually is an engine right now that, yeah.
Yeah, because I used to use it when I had to do ABA and MLA and.
Yeah, I think it's just citable.
But, put in, Batman 12, the first appearance of the Joker. You guys laugh, but the Joker is actually ripped off of Silent Movie.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll get the site,
I know that.
for you. Let me look it up, but there is actually I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but there's actually a very famous silent film where the guy looks exactly like the Joker. And his face is frozen in a smile. He has this rare disease. And so his face is white. You can't really tell what color it is because it's black and white. But you look at him and go, okay, who came first? And you know that whoever drew, which was a guy named Bob Kane, you know that he had to have seen it, just had to have. One of those things where it's like, well, there is this thing called synchronicity, which says that there's only so much information in the world at any time. That's why someone on the East Coast and the West Coast who don't know anybody else can virtually produce the same thing. Happens a lot more than you think. But this one, a little outside the scope. Kind of weird. It's like, anyways, theoretically, should have been able to cite that. Okay? But now we have sites, search engines, and things. Anyways, there you go. Answer that different stuff.
Thank God for the 21st century.
Yep. You guys are so lucky. Then next we talk about shepherdizing. Need I say more about shepherdizing? I mean, it's your lifeblood. If you citing cases without shepherdizing them, keep Mickey Reed's name in mind. She might need a practice attorney to represent you someday. She'd probably be a pretty good one. That's going to get you an enormous amount of trouble. Way faster than you possibly imagine. Anyway, so we know about that. Again, very important that we keep up to date. Also very important that we don't cite the wrong parts of cases. They're no longer relevant. And again, very important, never cite a case that's been red flagged as any type authority. That's a disbarable offense. If the judge turns you in, you're probably getting disbarred. So don't do that. Now, I've never known a judge that's done that, but don't be the first. That's my advice, I guess. Anyway, all right? Then we gave you that wonderful online search, which was lots of fun. Okay, good. Okay, what do you guys want to do? You want to just go through? Because I'm just going to go to our last assignment, which is only 70 pages away, or do you want to take a break?
Okay.
I'm good either way. Yes, no?
Just go.
My decision?
Just go. Unless you want a break.
I'd like a break.
All
About
right.
10 minutes.
Okay.
It's 7:27, so why don't we come back at 7:37?
So
Yeah,
you're,
just take a short break. I'd like to sort of just.
Oh yeah, no, definitely the joke.
yeah, it's called The Man Who Laughs,
That's it. Thank you.
and it looks like the
Oh
Joker.
man,
It's
it's
the
like,
Joker, yeah.
and when you see it, you kind of go, you
Yeah.
can't get it, the joke out.
It's the Joker, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
You have to actually turn the unit on first. Or it'll go off, just keep the cool, your temperature. You just go out and rate 2 and 3 Is the temperature okay right now?
It's okay in there.
It's okay.
Beef rice.
I should have found the other thing, a little bit cooler though. This is my first summer out here, so I forgot I can do this. Yeah, I got to plan ahead, that's for sure. How are you? Come on. Good. Thank you.
No, we came up with a plan.
Good one.
The lottery got paid above 30 years ago.
Good thing I wasn't born yet.
Sucks to be you guys.
Come
Oh, you're 29, aren't you?
30 or
Oh, you're 30? Okay, so you sex on this baby.
yeah.
Nothing like that.
I trust my mom.
He's gonna sue me for suckling.
He sucked on my tit.
30 years ago, I need restitution.
Came out of me.
It's my money and I need it now.
That's not one fear is that my parents in the letter because they're just terrible with money. Like it'll be gone in like a month.
Oh, I know. I told my aunt, I'm going to give you in the lottery. The first person you tell is me, and I give you a plan.
Okay, let me just blow it on everything.
All I know is that better plan.
The lottery.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
I need my $1.6 billion.
Well, it's only like that.
Sorry, I need my $996 million.
I think I just gotta win once. And then I'm like, just gotta win one time. First thing he buys a fucking $9 bill.
Damn straight.
Sorry, I should have closed on the way in.
No problem.
You didn't hear it, so it didn't actually happen.
Didn't happen.
What's up the video? Enhance the audio.
Yeah.
Alrighty, back to it.
Have you heard what the questions were on the baby bar yet?
Oh, what were they? The contracts?
No, probably not.
Easiest bar I've ever heard of. Easiest baby bar.
Three
I've ever
cards.
heard. I'm saying no. Seriously? Okay. 2 murder questions. 2 dead bodies.
Just murder or like?
One was pretty much straight murder, and the other one was voluntary manslaughter, probably.
Oh.
The tort question was strict liability and straight garden variety negligence. And the contract question apparently was common law formation
What?
or something. They said
Wow.
really simple. They said it wasn't hard at all.
They probably all screwed up.
Probably threw them all off.
That they're They're trying to fool us. So anyways,
Just do as they say.
again, I'm curious to see. But if it is what I heard, that's the easiest big bar I've ever heard. Can't begin to tell you.
So how many people at our school took it? Do we know? Just two? Just the two L's?
Well, there's at least 3 that I know of.
I guess
There's Clara, Brian, and who's the third?
Charles took it again.
Oh, Charles, okay.
Yeah, Hardwell.
It'd be 3 L's.
Oh, okay. He did take it again?
Yeah, he took it again.
Good.
So he'll pass this time. And that's the only ones that I know of.
We'll go 3 for 3. That'd be nice. It'd be nice to have a 5-person class, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, well, that would be nice. But I don't know, maybe we'll see. We shall see. All right, everyone ready to get back to it then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, forward we go. All right, after that, we got into finally actual writing assignments, right? And first we did some work on a memo. Memo being the classic where you start with legal writing. Memos, for the most part, are writings between lawyers and lawyers, right? So it's always important to remember that. Pretty important skill to have in a law office, right? I mean, even if you're a sole practitioner, you write memos to file all the time, just to make sure you do what you said you did, and you had a basis of what you do. I used to do it all the time. I'd write to file and just have all sorts of memos to myself. Kind of weird, but anyways, it actually does help a lot, particularly when you're going back and you're thinking about a case and you're thinking, why did I do that again? And lo and behold, there it is. Now, of course, they're not too long. Don't get me wrong; they were never more than 1 page. But it was a good technique. There's things that I wanted to remember or do. That's fine. And again, being in the law office, that's how you usually communicate with the people in your office. So very good skill to have. Very, as we sort of discussed, I think the key to writing, I mean, everything is style, form, whatever, in office you'll and they'll tell you why. But the key, though, the better memos are useful. Remember when we talked about that? They're not just rote exercises. It's something that somebody can actually use. Now, hopefully you will never have to do what I did. I did it once. Some, maniacal superior of yours runs in your office and says, here's a big stack of papers. I don't have time to do this. I need you to write me a memo about today's hearing in 3 hours. Okay. Putting aside everything I was going to do, keep in mind, so be it. Fortunately, I was paid by the hour back then. So do that. It didn't matter how long you stayed. But back in the good old days, libraries. Okay, here we go. She runs in the office, grabs it, runs out. A couple hours later, yeah, we won. Okay. Or we're going to win anyways. Because, she had to speak in open court and she had no idea what she was going to say. So the tentative came down and she said, yeah, you're right. And later on, we won. And I was like, here you go. So it does happen. I don't remember who won the case. I think the case settled. It did. That's right. I can't remember what happened, but we did win that motion. I remember that, which was pretty good. Anyway, so yeah, I did it in 3 hours. It can be done, and yes, 3 hours is a very short amount of time. But just imagine how you've got 90 minutes. 90 minutes, I don't think I could have done that. It was more like a 3-hour exam, to be sure. But anyway, so yeah, it does happen. So memos are really good things to know, right? The other kind of thing I would warn you about with memos is, never No one's ever going to trust a memo that is all one way, or all good or all bad. You just have a feeling, about those memos. I'm not saying go out of your way to find a bad case. I mean, sometimes you do have a good case. If you have a dog, make sure you tell somebody it's a dog, right? Because remember, if you don't tell them, even if they snap at you, and they will, trust me. But even if you do that, remember that if you don't do it, the other side will. And take it for what it's worth, right? It's like, this is what I think is going to happen. Should have never taken the case. You're not allowed to say that either, of course. But this is what I think you're going to have to deal with. And so, better you than your client, in my opinion. So, that's not news. Being yelled at by attorneys. Better now than it was in my day, I think. But, anyways, not too many of that, though. Anyway, so that's what I think about memos, right? And again, you'll learn it's some version of IRAC. It's some strange version that you'll be told how to write memos in your office. If you work for someone, they'll have a way they do it. So don't expect to see conclusion first, but that's the way that I like to go. It's always conclusion first, because I wanted to know if I was wasting my time. It's just like it was. Using, okay, you know about that. Okay, obviously you're going to use authority, no problem there. Purposes, we talked about that. Audience, we talked about that. Okay. Right. Again, it's not necessary that you're persuasive. You really want to be as objective as you can. They're really just informational. You're not trying to say good, bad, or different, honestly. I mean, if you can do that, you're probably better off. Right? I know it's really exciting to want to win everything, but just don't do that. They're supposed to be informational. They're not really supposed to be persuasive. Okay? So if you write one for me, don't try to persuade me. Okay, just be objective. Just give me the good, give me the bad. Like with Benjamin Franklin, give me the good, give me the bad.
When you give the bad, you differentiate, right? When you give bad, you just, I can't think of the word.
However,
Distinguish?
Yeah, you distinguish it between that case and your case, right? So even if it's bad, you still try and put a good spin on it?
if you can.
Or do you just flat out say, this case is completely against us and good luck?
If that's what it is, that's what it is.
Okay.
Because I mean, what you do as a practical matter is when you're a lawyer, and it's funny because this makes me want to laugh and cry, but you are required to make the best argument you can for your client. But I think be reasonable, okay? I mean, making these crazy arguments for people and then claiming that it's part of your duty of zealous advocacy, you're not doing anyone favors. I have news for you, Matt. You're going to lose, I mean, in my estimation, you're going to lose credibility. You make a really bad argument and shows that your client really is either guilty or liable. So, and you will, if you have not already, you will run into these attorneys that will tell us that, zealous representation. Well, I to this day could not tell you for 100% sure that OJ did it, because I wasn't there. So, okay, 100%, right? No videotape, 100%. But I know Colombian drug lords did it. Okay, that's just stupid, right? And when you do things like that, you get to a certain point where it's just like, and then you're seeing this judge over and over again, right? Because remember, you sort of settle into your courtroom, particularly when you're a criminal attorney. You go around a lot, but you see the same people a lot, right? And the more successful you become, the less traveling you do, for the most part. You find your courtroom and you appear there. If you were a criminal attorney, the judges will get to know you. The DAs will get to know you. If you keep making these crazy arguments, right? They don't know you. Right?
The jury still doesn't know you, and they're the ones you have to convince.
But that's probably the one place you could really lose a jury. It's like making
Outlandish claims.
outlandish complaints. And so-and-so did it. Who? You know, not possible. You know. Anyways. All right. So we good on that? Okay. Next we did Grinnell. No, we did this fast class. Yeah, I used to have to do another there. That one's not done yet. Okay, here's all our stuff on that. Then we went to performance tests. There we go. That's right. Into more logical. All right, and I gave you the basics of all that, right? I gave you a handout. And, you know, I think we're pretty good. I think honestly, this class is pretty good. I'm pretty happy where we're at right now. It usually takes a little longer for me to see students catching on to it. It usually happens right near the end. All of a sudden, these light bulbs go on, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get it now. We're doing 9 different versions of the same thing. When you get there, we're in good shape, by the way. And we're getting there. We really are. It's looking pretty good. So that's a good sign because you need to pass your PT. You know, it's worth an essay and a half. If you think about that, you have to pass. I mean, you can't take the hit on it. It's like not only did you blow an essay, but now you cut off half your points from another essay. It's way, and if you sort of start to look at it, you just can't blow it. You've got to at least get a 65. And 60 is going to really hurt, right? Because it's going to take one of those 70s and it's going to bring it right down. That's bad. And that can make the difference. I'm not saying it's going to, but that can make the difference. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, just do the math, and you know, right? But you're just teetering, and the 70 would have done it, right? But what a shame, right, to actually not go through on the performance test. Fortunately, when we had to pass the performance test year after year after year, most students passed the performance test. That's why a lot of people slow. That wasn't the problem. You know what most people fail? Multis. Multis are the one that got people year after year. Rarely the essays. The essays usually, but statistics showed them over and over and over again that the third day was useless. That the people who had already failed had failed on the second day. That's why they cut off the third day. It's not because they're nice. It's because they want to save money. And they know that statistics told us that if you were going to fail the bar, you would know by the second day. And then the third day, very few people actually failed. So, for whatever that's worth. But now it's just sort of, you've got to throw it in, and it's worth an essay and a half. I don't know. Which one I'd rather have. I think I'd rather have it the way you guys do. Mostly though, because just 3 days is longer than 2. And I was ready to go home after the first day. It's nerve-wracking, so 2 days would have been just fine. All right. And so we went over Henry J.S. Sloan, very old. It's about 20 years old now, I think. But it's still a good one. And it still really tells you a lot about how they're showing you how to do things. That's why I like that one. It still shows you how to do it. It's really, everything's there. It's a little bit long, I admit. You don't see things like this anymore. But if you can organize that one, and you can, that's the whole thing. They give you everything you need in that one. And the issues it's really obvious whether you're following it or not very quickly. You can tell really quickly whether you've read it and understand what the task was. Because it's kind of right in front of you. If you start talking about voluntary, and students do that all the time. They write about what they think they know, and it's bad. anyway, so we did do that. Okay, good deal on that. What else? I'm not used to you guys doing anymore. Good point. Okay, any questions about any of that? Okay, good. And again, we'll use some of that this Saturday. Next, we talked about opinion letters. All right, opinion letters. In my mind, probably the most important thing you want to learn is who your audience is. That's why I kind of hit you with that up front next. You're writing for clients now. I highly recommend you do not write the same for clients that you write for other attorneys. Not a good idea. Your clients really don't care a whole lot about case law. In fact, it's been my experience that this is something that you can, I mean, we wouldn't think of citing case law as condescending, right? I mean, that sounds kind of weird to me. You're fine, okay, because they don't understand it. You have to remember they don't understand it. Okay, so be careful. You know, and actually Will had a good point back then, which was remember that your clients are hurt. So all you're doing, they're very susceptible to thinking they're being condescended. They're very, they're hurt, they're vulnerable, and for better or for worse, it's part of the life of a lawyer is they know your phone number, and pretty much no matter when they call you, as long as their case is going on, which can be a long time, right? There's some legitimacy to them calling you, even if just to say, is there anything new? Now, if they start doing it every day, you start to say, nothing personal, but I do have other clients. You might get to that point with some of them, but you don't even really have to say that, to be perfectly honest. The classic is always, I promise you, if there's anything new, I will call you. Promise. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. That's the next phone call. Anyways, but, you'll figure it out. But that's a good skill to have, though. Not just as an attorney, but as kind of a person. You want to treat people well. I mean, I always tried to. I never thought that my clients were just, well, and again, I did most of my career in employment law. So yeah, they were hurt. A lot of people they were broke. They were always getting divorced. Always. I mean, a couple guys in the back of my mind right now, it's like, wow, you talk about they get hurt on the job and their life just falls to pieces. Just falls to pieces. And I might want to think about it. Might want to start by practicing writing some opinion letters and figure out how you're going to write to clients from time to time. These are very good skills to have. And consider, at some point, it's okay to sit down and not decide what type of a lawyer you're going to be, but, there's something to be said. I mean, when I think about doctors, bedside manner goes a long way. Just does. Every doctor's a little bit different. They come at things from a different angle, and you're just going to end up appreciating some of them more than others, right? Same thing with lawyers, right? You get in the same kind of situations, and I'm not suggesting you waste your time, by the way. I mean, there is a certain, you do bill by the hour, or whatever you do, but at the same time, I just never thought it was that big of a deal to give somebody 10 minutes, just because I couldn't bill for it or something like that. Yes, I don't know. I've known people who've done that too. They have their billables and, okay. I had one attorney who they don't do this so much anymore because it was actually a little bit of a scandal back in the good old day. But, at one point, lawyering got so bad in California, on many levels, it was really difficult to be out there at one point. But, crazy. But anyways, one of the things that, because this is still in the partner track, was still around, and things of that nature. And so they could still dangle the carrots in front of you. But they were demanding like unbelievable hours. from people. Like, well, if you put in this many hours, you'll get this bonus and you'll stay on this track, right? So it all sounds really good. But what was starting to happen was people were starting to realize that the billable hours that were coming in from some attorneys, there aren't that many hours in a year. You know what I'm saying? And so they tried to justify that by having a practice called double billing. And so, double billing. I can do two things at once. All right, well, this is how it kind of worked. This is one of the stories that I always liked. I thought this was great. Very imaginative. You would be an attorney and you'd get sent on some kind of a road trip, right? You'd go and they'd put you up in a hotel or something because the next day you would have a trial or something like that, right? It's a true story, by the way. This is just, a lot of people relate to this. While you were preparing for the next trial the next day, right? You would go into the shower at night and you would think about another client, their case, and you would bill them for that. Because here you were billing because you were on the clock for this trial. At the same time, because you were thinking about them in the shower, or because you stayed up till 2 a.m. and wrote a memo about someone else's case, you would double bill, and that's what people were doing.
There are still people that
But
do
it
that.
got crazy. It got like, there aren't that many hours a year, and that would pretty much mean you never ate. or whatever, but you can see this that human beings couldn't do that. But that's the type of stuff that was coming out of it.
I was actually wondering about this. So, where I work, we do time splits, and we have multiple clients. Like, it's amazingly how cheap you can get great attorneys if there's 5 clients on board. Because we do time splits. But is it wrong technically to write slightly, because there might be slightly different demurs, like what clients would, but it's like it's the same. You know what I mean? Like, so we just do time splits and make small changes, no big deal, right? But would it be wrong to say I wrote a different demur, and substantially use my same thing over and over again? But I guess it's a PR question.
Yeah, I mean,
Just don't do it, I guess. Is the,
well, the answer is always be reasonable.
right.
I mean, it only becomes a problem when it becomes a problem, and things tend to be problems when, you just heard what I just told you, right? Do you really think that she's sitting there washing her hair? Oh yeah, I was thinking about my other clients, so I build, and see, you build in increments too. So, what's your smallest increment? Maybe it's a half hour, who knows? Well, I thought about it for 5 minutes, well, I built a half hour for that. And they were doing all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And I don't know the exact implication of that, under which,
According to PR, you're not supposed to do it. You're supposed to bill what you do, and that's it. So if you're using a generic answer and all you do is change the name of the people in it, you're only supposed to bill for
Do time splits on.
well, no, you're only supposed to bill for the amount of time that it takes you to put in the name of those people.
Well, but
Because you have a pre-formed answer that you send in for every case that you have. You're not supposed to do 0.6 per answer that you do. You're supposed to do 0.1 because all you did was change the name of the parties. But there are some firms
We
where
have
they
5
have.
clients, and I'm doing one demur, I'm putting 5 different names on it. We just split it 5 ways. Instead of being $300 an hour, it's now.
You're creating the demur, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
For those clients.
Yeah, there are some people that are.
I
mean, you can't say it's one client gets, you have to split it up.
Right,
It's
you
not
have to-
fair.
Keep sorry, but
Yeah.
he paid for all of it,
That's what
and you
I
pay
was
for.
saying.
Well, no, but then there's some firms where it takes you an hour to do the demur, but you have 5 different people. It's the same demur. You're just changing the names. You do an hour to this client, an hour to this client, an hour to this client.
I don't think you're allowed.
You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that anymore.
But
Yeah.
there are people that still do it. But
I mean, again, there's rules.
and then your clients audit you and they figure it out, and then you're fired.
Pretty much, yeah. And also there's that famous story, I don't know about that. I can't remember what firm it was about, but apparently it wasn't the only one, but There was a firm also that, you know, it's so funny because you just don't hear about things. Out here, it's completely different. But there was also this other kind of big problem too, because not only one of the, you know, situations I said, but, you know, and what you could charge for and what you could charge back for. And it got into these whole things about, well, what's a copy worth? You know, how much should you really charge for a copy? And it just got a little crazy. But there was this one really amazing story though. There was this guy who had been with this company for, you know, this law firm for a long time, and they'd done a lot of work for him. And you know, again, it is what it is. And they, on top of everything else, they did his estate for him. And one of the things that happened is he never said anything during his lifetime. Apparently he was, you know, whatever, but he was happy with them, or whatever else happy was. It's kind of what I understand from being told the story, is it never was a deal when he was alive. But after he died and his executor got into the bills, exactly what this guy was being charged for, like charging back for. And one of the things that they charged him back for, the law firm, was the wreath that they sent to his funeral.
So messed up.
Be reasonable, okay? You know, come on.
Gotta use that retainer.
Okay. I'd like to say I've heard it all, but I'm never gonna.
I'd like the $5,000 wreath, please, because that's what I have left in my retainer account.
Me? I don't know. But that's what happens. Okay. Opinion letters, again, don't charge your client. But you know, we have what are called clean and then not so clean. You probably remember that from back then, or qualified and unqualified, right? So, but you know, opinion letters can be very, very useful. It's a good skill to have. It really is. Again, I got my kind of look at them doing copyright opinion letters for a t-shirt company, and it was really interesting. And you know, even the good news is even if I was saying okay, you know, they had a letter in their file that said a lawyer looked at this, he took a good hard look at this and decided that we were okay. So I mean, even that has value, right? I mean, it looks good when you try to actually figure out whether you're doing the right thing or not. So again, that's value. Okay. There's other types of opinion letters, a lot of them about business, the state of the business, and then a lot of them, if you can get into that rare air up there, so to speak, about bankruptcy issues and stuff like that. You know, very much driven by finance at that point, feasibility studies and all that great stuff. It's kind of cool, I think, anyway. All right, and then you have the unbelievable task of writing Nitardi, right? That's where we kind of end this this section of the class with Nitardi. Again, I don't think that's an easy one. It's very fact-driven. It's not that heavy on the law, although again, you have to catch a couple things. You have to know what you're dealing with, otherwise it just makes no sense. And then you're asked to kind of boil it down to something that a client can read, which, you know, at least you can say to yourself, you know what the client wants. The client wants, you know, in this case, his daughter to be with him, right? So not terribly difficult. And the closer you stay to that, the better off you are. This one, you probably have a lot more case law than you actually would write to an actual client in that situation. Considering you can figure out family law, I never could. So, I mean, to me, it's like everything in the best interest of the child. Like I said, I've been in family court a couple of times. They're all walking around. I think, you know, they're walking up to the judge, just walking away. The clerk is doing things I've never seen clerks do before. You know, time comes, you know, 8:30, children, everybody in. What? They're actually calling people in from outside. Never seen a judge do that before. Maybe this is one of the few times they do that, but I just never have seen that. before, and I swore I would never go back to 403, the downtown LA building, because that's, where they're all sitting across from each other, and it's like, never want to be here. And I just thank my lucky stars I wasn't really representing anyone, right? And crazy stuff. Anyway, so opinion letters it is. Now, I will give you one. Any questions? If not, I'll give you one last heads up that I give every class for your midterms and for your finals. I admit it, and if you were actually to look back at my track record, but I have said this repeatedly during the class, and this is as far as I'll take it. I have told you repeatedly that even if there is some kind of a format that we have not gone over, it does not matter. You will always have some direction, if more than you need, and that don't freak out. Just read what you're given and you will be able to do it, okay? And even if you can't, I know that, you see what I'm saying? But that's how I feel about it, that there's nothing is off limits. Anything that I think is an interesting thing, I feel, even at this stage, I feel confident.
But you will give us more direction than Natardi did in how to set it up, at least.
Have a good way of doing it, I think.
Other than go find whatever the issues are and good luck.
Yeah, make sure you read that page and catch those distinctions. Otherwise,
You're completely wrong in your entire PT.
yeah, really. And yeah. On the other hand, I'm not likely to give you any cases that don't matter because those don't show too often, to be honest with you. All right? That's my last comment. Anything else? Again, as is my policy, do not email me. Do not. If you run into me, so be it. But I tend to not answer any questions about tests.
I don't even know what questions I could ask you about a PT.
I just don't like doing it because I don't like giving students advantages. If there's something that I think is really interesting, or you come up with something, I would let everybody know and say, well, let's get the group together, because we're a small group. So we can always just sit down for a bit. I could say, we'll ask you a great question. This is what it is. So I'll see all three of you, but I don't answer individual questions about tests.
Dean Tucker,
It's a bad idea.
this is going to be a weird question you're probably not going to like, but I noticed the other day that your email is not even in my computer. Like I've never emailed you, like ever, and I don't think I've ever had your email.
It's philipdrucker@hotmail.com.
So this I have it if you need it.
And it's one L, just so you know. That's a mistake all students make. They always put in two. That's funny, because if you were actually to ask me, I would have said, I think I got an email from you at some point. That's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, students email me all the time. I'm really nice, right?
Because even when we used to get the PowerPoints, it would go to Alana first.
Just go to Alana first, yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah, when you have a big class, it's a little problematic. Sending out your email to numerous people, and the only reason it's not no fault on your side, but people, hackers and things, they like to see long lists of CCs and stuff like that. So you have to be a little careful at some level. Again, at this school, it's never been that big of a deal. But see, what I was trying to do was I was trying to get one or somebody to keep everything on file.
Yeah.
Like this is what I gave them, so that I wouldn't have to be the person, who said, well, someone would say something, I'd say, well, what did we give them? And here would be this repository of stuff. So that's why I did it. But also, when you get up to hundreds of students, you don't want to do that, because then you become kind of well, first of all, who the heck knows what's going to happen? But you become a target for,
For abuse.
and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're more than welcome.
Well, I have it now. I see it in my
Please feel free.
contacts, and not my contacts, but my Gmail.
I mean, imagine what it's like at an online school. Where all they do is email you all the time. They never come. All right, guys. Make me proud. If it helps, I'll just remember, if you don't do well, disappointed I would be.
I've already disappointed my parents enough, so does it become another ring on that totem pole? Like,
Thank you so very much.
You guys are alright. You guys are okay. We're gonna be fine.